John, the NFL and Amazon are in full force.
Andrew, it's not just Amazon. Apple's on a collision course with Aaron Judge and Roger Maris. Streaming, it's here.
And we're back. The Marchand and Oran Sports Media Podcast. I'm Andrew Marchand, sports media columnist for the New York Post. He's John Oran.
Our good buddy there, John Alrad.
From the Sports Business Journal, their media reporter. And John, last couple of weeks, we've had some really good big gets. 3 weeks ago, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. 2 weeks ago, Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson. Last week, Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit. This week, me and you just going at it. A lot to talk about with Amazon, Apple, ESPN, NFL ratings, baseball, a lot to go over.
I like it, man. I like not having the big get. Let's just get right into it. Who's up? Who's down?
Who's up? Who's down?
All right, my who's up.
We win on our field.
ESPN's Jimmy Pitaro. Why? Monday Night Football feels big again. It feels like it's going to be a big event going forward. We've talked about this before, right? So I don't really like to kind of make prediction and then say, oh, look, we're right. But I do think if you look at where Monday Night Football is trending, first off, you got Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, feels bigger. You have Eli and Peyton and Eli, Manning cast. First week, they're going to come back for this week. And then this past Monday, they had their first quasi doubleheader where you have one game starting on ESPN, then about halftime, a second game starts on ABC. This is just the first of those. Next year, they're going to have 3 of them. And that's going to be a big deal. That is going to become a thing, the Monday Night Football doubleheader, when it happens a few times a year. I didn't like the double box. I said that. I think when they go to the highlights with Van Pelt for the other game, that works better. They're going to make the graphic a little smaller in the upper left corner. Look at CBS and Turner NCAA tournament, how they do it. It's a small, doesn't need to be so big. I get it, first time out, maybe you do that. But overall, big win for Pitaro, for Burke Magnus, for Disney, because Monday Night Football, they're also going to have flex scheduling coming up in the future. You just feel it all coming together where Monday Night Football feels like a big event again. It's had some years now where it kind of felt like, you know what, Monday night, it's after Sunday night in terms of prime time NFL. Now, I'm not saying it's on par with Sunday night yet, but it does have that big feel with the stars in the booth, Peyton and Eli, and then better games, double headers, flex scheduling. It's all coming together, and I think it's a real good deal for Pitaro, Magnus, Chapek, Disney, Mickey Mouse, the whole gang.
All right, I'm going to do who's up, and I am going to do somebody who I think is going to be a villain in the New York market this week, and that's Eddie Q of Apple. He's my who's up because if you're going to run a business, this is the way to run a business. It might not be consumer friendly for New York Yankee fans that want to be able to watch this Friday's game on broadcast television or on cable television, because of course this is where Aaron Judge could possibly break or tie Roger Maris's record. It's an important game to Yankees fans. But for Apple, this is why they did the deal. They want to get the best games, and they want to be able to get into the New York market and get people sampling their service. If you're Apple, I know that there was some talk in the press. I read your column, of course, about will they possibly move it off of Apple TV Plus and make it available to a wider audience. If you're Apple, no chance. There's no way they're going to do that. This is streaming. It's not always consumer friendly, but if you're in the business of streaming, this is a really good business deal for Apple TV Plus and Eddie Q.
We're going to get more into streaming with Amazon and Apple and more discussion when we get to the topics. Let's move to who's down. John, what do you got?
All right, who's down? I'm going to go with the Chargers owner, Dean Spanos, and I'm going to go for Thursday night's game, Amazon's game. That number in Los Angeles, the TV ratings number, was surprisingly low. In the LA market, it got a 6.8 rating, a 21 share. That basically means 21% of all TVs in use in Los Angeles were watching the game. It was a game with the Chargers are good. They have a star quarterback who fractured a cartilage in his rib cage and was still throwing touchdowns. It was a close game. In just about any other market, you would have expected that number to be a lot higher. The Rams last year and just the regular season, not a primetime game, they were averaging a 10.5 rating. The Chargers for that big game was at a 6.8. If I'm the Chargers or if I'm the league, I'm not going to go so far as to say I would be concerned about that number, but that did make me raise an eyebrow.
They're all watching on Prime.
That's the answer. Yeah.
We're talking about Amazon Prime in a moment. My who's down, DirecTV and Sunday Ticket. This has been a total embarrassment the first couple of weeks. It's not working for certain people. We know that we talk about this nonstop. DirecTV is not going to be the provider of Sunday Ticket come next year. Most likely going to be Apple, we think. But this is not the way to go out for Sunday Ticket. They already said that they're going to give refunds for week 2 to people who had trouble streaming the games. And it's really just terrible for fans. You know, you want to watch the Patriots game and you're out of market and you can't see it because they can't get their service to work properly. Again, we've been talking about this streaming, but this isn't their first rodeo. And to me, that's where, you know, we talked about, and we'll get to Amazon in a second, Thursday night, if it had gone out, it wouldn't have been okay, but it was the first time they're doing it. You know, so that would have been a little bit of an excuse. DirecTV has had Sunday Ticket forever. They've had the streaming component for a long time now. For it not to work, again, I get it. We're giving them a zero, you know, we're not giving them any room for error, but that it can't go out for extended periods, which it has the first couple of weeks. So DirecTV Sunday Ticket, that's my who's down for this week.
Yeah, it dominates my Twitter feed every Sunday so far. They've had to do rebates the first 2 weeks of the NFL season, and you have to wonder if it's their last season with the NFL and the last season with Sunday Ticket. Just have to wonder if their priorities and their focus is elsewhere, and they just, you know, they don't care as much.
Are they tanking for Tua? Are they playing for number 1 pick? What is going on here? Oran with some very major accusations. DirecTV does not care. I mean, look,
they weren't accusations. They were just asking questions, Andrew.
Just asking questions. All right. You're ready to be a politician. I just went out there, not really saying it. Well, look, they don't really have a defense. The first 2 weeks they're offering rebates. So that's a major who's down. All right, let's go to the topics and something we've been talking about for months and months. It finally happened. And now we're already into week 2 of Amazon Thursday Night Football. It's now going to become a weekly event and sort of get into the NFL, just our normal rotation. Thursday nights are on Amazon, but they open up, and initial impressions just as we go into Thursday and week 2. What do you think overall of what you looked at when you saw Amazon first off with the Chargers and the Chiefs week 1?
So I'm going to start with the positives here, Andrew. If I'm the NBA, and this is all going back to the NBA, their rights are, of course, coming up in 2025, and they're considering, or they're talking to or they're not talking to everybody, but they're looking at everybody. Amazon, Apple, of course, they're on TNT and ESPN. But if I'm the NBA and I'm taking a look at what Amazon did with the NFL, it makes me want to go with Amazon. It makes me feel safe going to Amazon. That production is out of the gate. It is a big game production. You have you talked about big game voices. Who has a bigger game voice than Al Michaels? They had close to 30 cameras. I think it was 29 cameras. So they're covering the game really well. They handled that game with such care and spent so much money trying to make the NFL look good that if I'm the NBA and I'm having any kind of hesitancy about going toward a streaming service, that really would have eased a lot of that, I think.
100%. So let's get to something we talked about when we were doing the rundown, because you disagreed with me a little bit. To me, when you grade them going forward, just if it works, it's a pass-fail grade. It either works, and most of the streaming, I know there's complaints around the country and certain, different people have different experiences, but overall it didn't crash, right? It was, you're able to see it. For most people didn't have as major issues. Some people did. I hear you. People are yelling at me, whatever. But most people didn't have major issues. So to me, that's a win, because even though the Amazon people, Jay Marine, who's now their head of sports video, they were confident they were going to be able to do it. There were people who were like, I'm not sure. That's going to be a heavy load. And the numbers, they felt like internally that they really got great numbers in terms of the amount of people watching. So to me, that's like the biggest thing. Because going in, I wrote a big story. We talked about it. I knew the production was going to be good. What they did, Marie Donahue, Jared Stacy, bringing in Fred Godelli, bringing in Al Michaels, bringing in Herb Street. I thought they made some good hires, even with the newbies that they brought in who haven't been doing NFL, like Kaylee Hartung and Richard Sherman and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Those seem like might be pretty good hires. And even the alternative broadcast with Dude Perfect, not for me, but for people with kids. I heard from people with kids who seem to really like that and were watching football for the first time with their family. And so I think they got a lot right in terms of production. But the most important thing was they love calling their people the Amazonians, and all the Amazonians, I'm so ridiculous. All the Amazonians, they got all the wires to work, and it basically works. So to me, when you talk about the NBA, well, can you handle this load if you have 10 million, 12 million, 14 million people watching? That to me is pretty important.
I'm not surprised, and it's not just you. But the bar for a $1.3 trillion company is so low that, hey, I wasn't overwhelmed with problems. Is like there were problems. There were. I want to highlight Joe Flint, Wall Street Journal reporter who covers media. He tried to watch on his television. He got kicked off. He was tweeting about this. He has a big screen TV, ended up having to watch it on his computer screen. I mean, there's somebody who knows about all of this. I saw several tweets and I heard from some friends where Al Michaels is calling a touchdown a full 5 seconds before the video is showing the touchdown. And so they weren't able to get the syncing and the video to watch.
You sure Al's not that, he's that good? We've called him the greatest of all time. He's calling the touchdown before it happens. He
is the GOAT. Yeah, absolutely. So but maybe that wasn't it. For me, in the fourth quarter, I was watching it fine. I was watching it through my Xfinity X1 box, set-top box. And my video was fine until the fourth quarter when it looked like a pre-HD TV video. The technical feats was good for streaming, but if that had happened to a Fox, CBS, NBC, or ESPN, we would be outraged. What's going on here? And there's a different bar now for streaming, and it's not necessarily fan friendly. And if I'm the NBA, like, again, the NFL is sort of allowing for that, and if the NFL can allow for that, certainly the NBA can. But if I'm the NBA, that doesn't fill me with glee. That's something that would scare me off a little bit. I don't think it was a slam dunk like Jay Marine's memo said, or like you said.
Yes, but I think the bar changes over time, right? This is week 1, week 2. To me, the bar changes over the 11-year contract. And here's what I wrote in my newsletter that comes out every Monday in Post Plus. Do you think after 1 week, there will be another Amazon contract in 11 years?
Oh God, in 11 years, I have no idea. After week 1, yeah, I think but I think that has less to do with how Amazon presented it and more that they were paying $1 billion on a package at all the linear TV networks.
But the question is, though, the question really is, do you think it'll be successful enough that Amazon wants to do business with the NFL wants to do business with Amazon, and everyone can make a big deal about the ratings for week 1, but where are we going to be, do you think, in 11 years, which is how Amazon looks at businesses? This is what Bezos's game plan almost always has been, is the dink and doink and go long-term, long drives, and then all of a sudden they're alone in the end zone. And I'm not saying they're going to be alone. We've discussed this. Streaming is part of the future. It's not the future. It's part of the future. Broadcast and maybe cable's not going anywhere. I'm not sure about cable, but broadcast is not going anywhere. I think after week 1, you could feel good that this is gonna work over 11 years.
So yeah, 11 years from now, will they be able to pick up a package? Yes. Do you think the Super Bowl is going to be on Amazon at 12 years from now or 15 years from now? I don't know. I don't. But it took ESPN. They started in '87.
They're going to
The
have
Super Bowl never even went to cable. No,
it never really even went to cable, right? I think that game will be on.
Well, the whole idea of like the bar changes, and the bar does change. I mean, I'm reflecting what I'm seeing out there, and so it's clear that there's a low bar. When I'm going to sound like an old guy here, we're going to lose all our demos on this. But when Fox got the NFL in 1994, everybody was waiting for Bart Simpson or Married with Children, and they were expecting Fox to really junk up the NFL, and everybody was waiting to pounce on Fox, and they couldn't, because Fox came out with basically with CBS's NFC quality television. When ESPN, we always go back to ESPN in 1987. If they had gotten the NFL and they had some outages and and some people had their video freeze and then had to reboot their cable set top, that would have been a black eye. That didn't happen. That did happen to a lot of Amazon subscribers that I know of, and so I think that it's something that I don't see Amazon getting out of the NFL. I think they're going to go forward. I mean, don't
you think that will improve though? That's my question. Like, I
think it'll totally improve, but why shouldn't it be that way from game one? It's totally going to improve.
It's a new system. All right, let's go a couple other negatives. All right, Al Michaels calling Roger Goodell a pioneer. I mean, come on, Al. Al is we'd say the best of all time.
And Bezos was like the world's greatest mathematician or something like that, right?
So Al, you don't have to kiss Roger Goodell's butt anymore. You're 77. You've done more Super Bowls than anybody. No reason to say Goodell's a pioneer. I mean, you think he's a very good commissioner? Fine. I don't know in what world he's a pioneer. Can you give me? Is there any reason that Goodell's a pioneer? Am I missing something?
There was that great Chris Russo rant, Mad Dog rant, going for the idea that this was an historic game. It wasn't. We've had streaming games before.
No, it was an historic game.
No, it wasn't.
It's a landmark game. Nope, John.
I've been able to stream exclusive games on Yahoo from London for years. I could have seen every single Sunday night football game via streaming last year. Streaming's not new. This isn't. It's a new company that happens to be streaming it. But
no. There are really three major sports in America in terms of which are a higher tier in terms of television, maybe four. I'll put baseball in there too. And that's the NFL, college football, the NBA, and I'll put baseball in there. But baseball, it would have to be the postseason. So I kind of throw them out with the Apple and Amazon doing the regular season, although Amazon is doing the Yankees, which is a big deal. But this is an exclusive broadcast. This is history. You're crazy not to.
Yahoo had it was exclusive on Yahoo as well when they
that was it. No, well, I guess they did do a game, right?
Yeah, they did the game international games from London.
Yeah, no one cared about that. I don't know why. Why was that? Nobody watched it. I don't know. You're right. All right, that's a good point. That's a good point, Mikey. That's a fair point. The Yahoo games, but I don't know. Nobody cared about it because it's like some crappy game on a Sunday morning. This is a deal thing. It's Kirk Herbstreit, Goodell-y, the whole thing. So
listen, this was a better broadcast than that Yahoo game. Actually, you don't call them broadcasts.
They didn't even do the broadcast. They just took Fox. Now I know that people in the business love to tell me Amazon's not even doing this. They just took all the NBC people and took
it's an NBC production. Absolutely,
they love saying that. Here's the thing. Fine. Here's what I say back. I mean, I'm not here like I have nothing. Look, the Amazon people, you're out there. You'll eventually hate me. Don't worry, okay? But but if I have no stake in this game, it doesn't matter. It's if you get the job done or not. Amazon got the job done.
Let's get that bar higher. I need. My goal here is to get you to get that bar higher quicker.
All right, let's move on to, because we're doing this a lot of streaming and future, because the future's here, right? Thursday night football, exclusive landmark history, as you just agreed. Can I get it, McAfee?
Thanks, Marshawn.
Later this week, and some people, people are listening on the weekend, Apple TV Plus, your Who's Up, is going to have Aaron Judge, at least they're scheduled to, and nothing's changed as we talk. They're going to have it. I agree, you're right. They're contractually, they have the game. This is why you have the game, and kudos to Apple because that's why you have it. But for baseball, this is awful. Now, for people who don't know, the schedule during the first part of the week, the games are on Yes and cable on Tuesday and Wednesday. Then Thursday, Fox comes in there and they have the game nationally. So that's good for baseball. Friday, Apple TV Plus. on Saturday. MLB Network has it nationally. Locally, it's on Yes. And then Sunday night, it's on Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, Yankees, Red Sox for those last 4 of those games. This isn't good for baseball. Now, I get it. MLB, they'll tell me that Apple TV Plus, you can get it for free. And, so it doesn't cost any. And then they get wide distribution. It's just people don't know. They're not familiar with it still. And this is my whole problem with the overall Apple TV deal and why I like Amazon Thursday night. I like the Yankees agreement better, is that the Apple thing just comes out of nowhere for fans, right? Baseball fans like their teams, and it's out of nowhere. There's an Apple game thrown in, as opposed to the Yankees and Amazon. There's 21 of those, and yes, people are still annoyed about that, but they get used to it, and there's a regular routine that is established. This is just like out of nowhere. Here's Apple on the game broadcast of Steven Nelson, Hunter Pence, and Katie Nolan. That's their broadcast for what could be history. And so you look at it, and I get it. It's just not good for baseball. You want to distribute. You want as many people to see this as possible. Aaron Judge is already a big time name in baseball. He can cross over. He's the Derek Jeter of this generation. He's larger than life. He's 6'7", 300 pounds, and he just hits home run after home run. It's Ruthian. It's an amazing story. And then he's going to get a humongous contract in the offseason that's going to be for $300 million maybe, or maybe more. And so he's about to take off where he should be the face. Here he is, the face of baseball, but you could argue he's the best player in baseball right now. This is such a moment that they potentially could miss because of the Apple equation.
This is where I think it's good for baseball. I get you want more fans to watch. Fans are going to be able to watch 6 of the 7 games. So now it's going to be on Apple TV Plus. I haven't been able to see any viewership numbers. Apple doesn't share them. MLB doesn't share them. But I suspect, as you said, on Friday night, people are watching their hometown team on their regional sports network. I suspect that the viewership is not very high. This is a way to increase that viewership, have Apple TV Plus increase its number of subscribers, and as the years go on, possibly renew that Major League Baseball deal. Hey, it was worth it because we were able to get it. So for baseball as a business, yeah, I get it. And baseball also is making sure that 6 of the 7 games that Judge is going to be playing in the week leading up to that home run chase are going to be on national television. I think,
Well, not national. The others will be on Yes. The first couple are on Yes. But you're right. The ESPN game and the MLB Network and the Fox. So 3 of the 4 that weekend against the Red Sox will be on national TV when, again, we're taping this. He might hit 3 home runs tonight. And so you never know. We don't know what's going to happen in terms of baseball's every day. It's not a good sport to talk about because things change so quickly. But yes, that is true. And you're right about that. And this is the overwhelming thing. And maybe I haven't emphasized this enough. This is terrible for the fans, right? That's the thing. Amazon, that's not really good for the fans. Like that was the thing. I had Roger Goodell's memo, right? And he said something about, we're doing this for our fans. It's like, no, you're not doing it for the fans. But the next line was like, it's the best thing for Thursday Night Football and it's good for the growth of our league or something. Yeah, those 2 are true. So we'll give you 2 out of 3. That's a 66% on the math test there. But yeah, this isn't good for the fans. Another streaming service, another way to figure out it is the future, and they do need to go to these places. I mean, because they want to be able to pay everyone and make as much money as possible. And you have to understand, we've talked about, is cable still going to be there? Is Sinclair going to go into bankruptcy? All those things, like, will Apple or ESPN Plus or a streamer be there to, these rights? Like, what is going to happen with rights? Could Amazon have all Yankee games at some point, within combination with Yes? I'm not saying that's happening. I think they're going to go direct to consumer, with Yes and SNY, just like Nesson has, starting next season, most likely. But the future is muddled, especially in baseball and regionally.
Yeah, it might sound like we're disagreeing, but we totally agree. All these streaming services and all these different packages that are going to all the different streaming services that are out there, not good for the fans.
All right, let's hit one more thing before we move on. In my Post Plus newsletter this past Monday, I had some conjecture, I think informed conjecture about the price of ESPN, the mothership, when it goes direct to consumer, which you like a very big man last week, admitted you're incorrect, and you say, well, it happened in 2 years now. So I'm pausing, letting you go. You don't have anything to say to that?
Yeah, like it changes. My opinions change like the wind. Absolutely.
No, it takes a lot of credit to you for changing that. But I wrote, I think it will be $19.99 to $29.99. That even might be high. I think more in the $19.99 start. And I did the math, which I'm terrible at maths. I don't go by that really. But the reason I think it starts lower and then they inch it up. They're getting about $10 per subscriber on cable. You double that basically because you're going to have less people. And then even the ESPN Plus people, in theory, you're going to get maybe a lot of those people, if not most of them, to just go with you with ESPN being the full going from $9.99, which is what ESPN Plus costs, to $19.99 or $29.99. And so I think that's where I stand on the pricing. What do you think about that?
Well, it depends on what people are going to be buying. I don't think anybody's going to be buying ESPN, the channel. I think it's going to be a suite of channels. So you're going to get, and this is what I'm looking for. And I don't have a real good read on this yet. Is Disney going to offer a sports bundle of ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, ESPN Plus, and then put a price on that for subscribers? And then on top of that, just kind of do a Disney bundle to where you get ABC, all of the Disney channels, you get sports, you get news. And then that's a really big bundle. That what could you get for that? $50, $40?
You're saying with everything. Yeah, with everything. Well, you start adding it up. I mean, Disney Plus, the bundle right now is what, $13, $14 per month. And so 14, and then you add the 19. I mean, then you're at 34, 35. And then you're putting ABC News in there and all those things. Yeah, I would say, I just think the thing is about it, I see a lot of, like, the reason I looked into it, because a lot of people saying it's going to be $50, this, that. So I kind of was like, all right, let me look into this. I think it starts lower. Now it inches up. So
but the question is, like, what's going to be $50? I could see the entire Disney package being $50.
I mean, that's obviously what they're building. That's what people do.
Well, the other question, I think the other question,
they rebundle. They unbundle and then they rebundle.
I know exactly. I think the other question I have, and I think what took me so long to figure this out, is Disney's cable relationships, because they still make so much money from cable just right off the top. You said $10 per subscriber per month. I think it's a little more than that even. That's billions of dollars that they get from that. And do they want to come out too low and really disrupt the cable business, or do they want to come out higher, which is sort of what these regional sports networks are doing with their direct to consumer? You come out with a higher price point, which keeps people from cutting the cord.
Yeah, I addressed that. Yeah, you that could be the case. I don't think so, because I think when you look at the regional sports networks, they're much smaller and more niche, and I think they need to charge more, because they're just not going to, like, the Yankees have the best ratings in baseball this year, and they've had 35 games of 113 going into our pod that have been more than 400,000 people. That's not so you're talking about 400,000 people that you're going to have to pay for this. So you need to be higher to get those 400,000. And you're right, you want to keep the bundle as long as you can, because that's really what the regional sports networks. If you're ESPN, and I'm just talking about ESPN, you're right, you start bundling everything. You're not just getting people in the tri-state area, which, is a very affluent part of the country. You want to get everyone in the United States to pay for this, and possibly eventually it goes worldwide, which you talked about last week. And so it needs to be at a price point that makes sense everywhere, not in just, when we talk about Ness in Boston, another affluent area, where you maybe can charge a little bit more and stickier content. People have to have this content. ESPN, obviously the model is there's something about ESPN that you have to have, so you take it all. And that's kind of how these things work, or maybe more than one thing that you have to have. And if you're a sports fan, it's kind of hard to live without ESPN, if you want to watch games.
I want to make one final point here. And our entire pod has been about streaming, and it feels like streaming is here, or it certainly is the way everything is going. Broadcast television is still the dominant way people watch this. The NFL has 11-year deals that guarantee that it's going to be on broadcast television into the 2030s. The NBA, when they do their deal, I'll bet a lot of money that their championship series stays on broadcast television. The World Series is not going off broadcast television.
Yep.
So while streaming is certainly making inroads, and I mean it's beyond a trend now, it's a business. Broadcast television is still primo, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, Fox's plan looks very good, right? They really have focused on broadcast and that and not worrying about paying for the streaming. And I agree with you. Like I said at the top here, it is a big part of the future, but it's not the future, right? I think broadcast is something that is because, the thing about Amazon, the reason they've been able to dominate and go into so many places is that they do distribution better than anybody in a digital world. But when you talk about delivering football games to a screen, broadcast is hard to beat. And I don't know if Amazon, especially like you talked about the issues, I don't know if they'll be able to beat that, at least in the near term. Now, long term, perhaps. But in the near term, next 10 years, broadcast, I think, is going to have the advantage. All right, let's hit a couple other topics before we finish up here. Pac-12 and Big 12 update. We made some waves last week when I said that $100 million, the Pac-12 and ESPN are hundreds of millions of dollars apart. First off, talking about the length of the deal, that's where they're $100 millions apart. Here's something I learned this week that I think, when you talk about digital player, John Casano and John Wilner out west both do a great job covering the Pac-12. Both have kind of pointed to digital that we spoke to last week and Amazon specifically. The problem for the Pac-12 is that to get the money that they maybe want to get, they need two entities, most likely, ESPN and Amazon or an Apple. The problem is they don't have enough good games to really get two entities to really give you huge money. Can you get pretty good money from one of those places? Yeah, you probably can. But can you get huge money from both of them? I don't think so, which is kind of what they're looking for. So how they divvy that up and do, let's say you want to get the distribution of ESPN and ABC, et cetera. Doesn't Amazon want to do smaller games? Does Apple want to do, smaller game to get on the air? I'm not sure they do. That doesn't seem to be their strategy when I'm looking at it.
The Big Ten deal was such a big deal. And basically it set up these big expectations for the Pac-12 and the Big 12 about, they believe that the Big Ten reset the entire market because it ended up, getting so much higher rights fees than people were expecting. ESPN and Fox, who are really the two most active networks. NBC is not really involved. CBS is not really involved. It's ESPN and Fox. They don't think it reset the market at all. They think that look, CBS needed to get the Big Ten. NBC really needed to get the Big Ten for Peacock. They're not active right now in the Pac-12 and the Big 12. So that's where the disagreement is. The conferences think they should get a lot more. The networks think they shouldn't. And they're at the onset of talking about all of this. So when you say, yeah, they're hundreds of millions apart, I don't think that's unusual. I don't think it's necessarily standard. I think they're farther apart than what you would typically see. I would expect ESPN is going to be able to do a deal with both. Fox is probably going to do a deal with one or the other. And the big question is whether or not Amazon, which really got burnt by the Big Ten, it bid more for the Big Ten, ended up not getting a package. Does Amazon want to go through that process again to where the college presidents are like, no, we want to stay on linear television and we don't want to go there? I think that's a big question that they have to answer in Seattle.
And you don't see Apple?
I think Apple for the Pac-12, I think is a possibility. But the question is, what does Apple want? I mean, if you take a look at what Apple did with MLS, would it be satisfied with a package of games, which might be Washington State versus Arizona? I'm not certain that fits within what Apple wants. If they're able to get the whole thing, I think they would want to do that. And the way the Pac-12 commissioner, George Kay, has been talking about, that is something that's on the table. But Apple is certainly somebody a dark horse to be taking a look at for the Pac-12.
All right. Good job not trying to say the commissioner's last name.
Kliakoff.
There you go. Right.
Thank you for calling me on that, Andrew.
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to say it either.
Before we get to the call of the week, Andrew, Dwyane Wade is leaving TNT. You broke that story. What do you got?
Yeah, this is just a decision. Wade doesn't want to go across country. He doesn't really want to do the NBA for right now. So it's not one of those moves where Wade's going to end up at ESPN, from what I'm told. He has a lot of business interest. He's a part owner of the Utah Jazz. That actually wasn't an issue in terms of, being a commentator on Turner. That wasn't going to be a problem. They did offer him a contract, not part of the Warner Media cutbacks. But Wade no longer. He was okay. He was pretty good on Tuesdays. So that's a position that Turner's going to have to fill.
Let us go now to our call of the week.
Call of the week.
Sunday on CBS, the Dolphins-Ravens game. Kevin Harlan was at his best.
Tagovailoa, blocked by Armstead. Going, he's got him! He's got him! Tyreek Hill! And the Dolphins have come back! 60 yards! Unbelievable!
Yeah, John, the thing about Kevin Harlan, he's a yeller, right? And so for me, at times, I don't love that, right? If you're watching a game, we've had Al Michaels on a few times. He says this all the time. He wants to play the rhythm and the kind of be the melody of the game. Harlan has that one speed. It's kind of a very loud one. But when you get a classic, Dolphins and Ravens, and the Dolphins have this tremendous comeback, that's his type of game, because the excitement, the energy that he brings on those calls, it's that they call for they call for being loud and kind of a little bit over the top. And so I thought Harlan, that was a good match for his style and his game. So I think he was a worthy member of Call of the Week. And then before we go, we want to just wish the best to Gus Johnson. Last week on Fox, he was unable to finish their game, Nebraska, Oklahoma. Joel Klatt did the second half, or maybe some of the first half too, play-by-play. But Gus, we are told he's going to be okay and going to be back this week, but just want to send our best out to Gus.
Back this week for the Maryland game. Maryland-Michigan is a big noon Sunday.
Yeah, we talk about the Big Ten, and they're going to have these triple headers. And then this week, that's the biggest game in the Big Ten.
I'm waiting to see a Maryland-Michigan game going up against the number one SEC game. I mean, I hope Maryland wins. I hope it's close, but the odds are it's not going to be a competition at halftime.
Yeah, maybe Fox didn't have the number one pick this week, because I can't imagine that was
Wait, so this is a number 2 pick?
I don't know. You're the Maryland expert. All right, that's gonna do it. If you want to go back and listen to our interviews, like we said, we had Joe and Troy a couple weeks ago. Kevin and Greg, are they first namers first yet? I don't know. You gotta go Burkhart.
Not yet. Yeah.
And then Al and Herbstreit last week. I think they're first and last namers. And so,
and by the way, Andrew, before that, we had Jason McCourty, we had Burke Magnus. We've been on a run with the big gets recently.
Big gets, but I enjoyed just talking to you and just keeping it simple this week. So hopefully you enjoyed that as well. If you can, please rate, subscribe, and if you leave a comment, that's helpful, we're told. So we appreciate all of you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
And a shout out to our AC Wyatt and Chris Mason, who are the guys that put this all together. Thank you for listening.